Hello, friends. Welcome to semifinal matchup here between, of course, Thunderclaude and BurtReynoldz. They are about to do battle with a trip to the finals later this evening on the line. I am Trenton, joined by Davis. How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm super excited about this match. I mean, Thunder and Burt are two of the best that we have in the community, and to see them go head-to-head in the semifinal match is definitely something worth watching.
Well, while we have a minute while waiting for them to start up, why don't you talk about the party they drafted here?
Yeah, so it was very interesting setup for the party comp. Black belt, double black mage, white mage. Now, this party could be phenomenal or it could be horrible. And we're going to find out how this party is going to work within the first 10 minutes of the game. You know, black belts tend to be super overpowered late game, but they're basically useless in the early game. And the effectiveness of our black belts or our black mages is very much going to depend on the magic that we see in Canaria and Provoca. So, I mean, yeah, we have no idea how the seed's going to play out until we find out how good those mages are going to be.
Yeah, you could be in for a little bit of a slog in the early game if you don't have the right magic at level 1. And, you know, when we have script shuffle on, there is, of course, the chance that if you want imps with nuke, this is how you get imps with nuke. So you could see imps that are just devastating to fight that kill you, and you have trouble getting those early levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and as we saw in the quarterfinal match with I believe it was BurtReynoldz v. Thunderclaude, we ended up not only having a very rough beginning in terms of how do we take care of Garland with very bad magic, but there was also Shuffled Astos. And Shuffled Astos is not that big of a deal mid-game, late game, but if Astos happens to be the king, like we found in that match, that could also be devastating and put our runners back 5 or 6 minutes, depending on how they decide to approach the Temple of Fiends.
Real quick for Thunder, he got here with a win last night over Edgeworth and an earlier win over Lord Fizzlebeef. BurtReynoldz got here by picking up a win over Sir Link-A-Lot and a first-round bracket win over Magius. Of course, they both had to survive play within the pods to get this far. And here we go, Fire 3, Lock 2. That's a pretty good level 1.
That's a good level 1. You know, if I'd also pick up Bane for that 19 gold, just in case you don't end up with an early Brack. It's cheap. It's in level 1. Ooh, and in Invis 2, in Cure 3, in Wall. That's a solid set of white magic. Yeah, I think that puts level 1 magic pretty solid for this early game, especially with Fire. I'm really liking Fire 3 in terms of whether or not I have to do a Marsh Dive. So it's a good start so far. We'll have to see what level 2 magic gives us. So, great question.
Do have nuke?
Oh, do they really?
No, I'm asking, do they? Because we see them on screen, so I want to know if they have nuke.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, this is a Danny seed, so I'm expecting arachnids to be the ones with nuke, not the imps. But we'll see. And we have a Toph canoe. So BurtReynoldz picking up our loose canoe. That is drastically going to affect how these runners approach this match.
Both of them will have it, so they'll both get the experience bonuses. Now they're at level 3. With the healing, with the save item, it's always a good idea to go outside and save before Garland, but of course they're both going to make a liar out of me. Or Burt is, anyways.
Yeah, I definitely, especially again with that Shuffled Astos flag, taking the couple extra steps to drop down and save just in case is a very, very good play. And by the way, great questions in chat. For those of you who are brand new to Final Fantasy Randomizer, we do see the bottle from the king and the canal from Princess Sarah. we're going to have to introduce you to some of the things that we kind of just like throw around in the community, but I want to help you try to understand what's going on with the game. And so what we have in chat was asked the question of, does lock actually work in the randomizer? And the answer is yes. So one of the biggest things, if you have ever played Final Fantasy I on the Nintendo Entertainment System, this is how the game is supposed to work. So all of those spells like Lock, Temper, Saber that don't work in the original game actually work in this game and are incredibly effective. So you're going to see not only spells that you typically move over in the original being vital to our player strategy, you're going to see a lot of other bug fixes and quality of life improvements compared to the original game.
In particular, the pace of the game, how fast it goes. As we get the loot from the pirates, the screen transitions are just so much faster. It makes for a wonderful experience.
Yeah, and something I keep forgetting is that the walk speed of your character in towns and on the overworld has actually been substantially ramped up to be about the same speed as the boat, whereas it was, I want to say, like half speed or a quarter speed, and it just took forever to go anywhere. And we actually do see some very good armor coming out of the armor shop. We see Cat +2s. We did see some chain, I believe it was chain +4s, which would have been great if we had a Vuvuzela.
Vuvuzela. But Nuke and Warp at level 2. So, very good black magic early game.
Can I just shout out to our devs? That was called the multi-instrumental Sarah flag, where the loot could be any number of instruments. And I've been playing dozens of seeds since that new flag has been put out, and I keep finding new instruments. The Vuvuzela seed, which we have today, is one I have not seen before, but now I am very curious what a Vuvuzela is, and I just want to say Vuvuzela one more time.
Okay, I'm now mad at you that you've never heard this, because that was a huge thing with the soccer community like 8 years ago or something. The Vuvuzelas were everywhere.
Oh, am I saying it wrong too? Is that what that is?
I'm not going to repeat that annoying sound in any way, shape, or form or endorse it. Just pull up an old soccer match and they're probably blowing it nonstop.
All right, well, let's get back to some Final Fantasy.
Please! There's Elmon, but not really anything useful for us right now, so Burt looks to be going for Earth 1. Now, with Warp, I actually like this play, because you can get out so much easier. The double dip is not nearly as punishing.
Yeah, and we're also going to see a quick look at the trap tiles here in the Hall of Giants to see whether or not we have a good potential grind spot. And now, like, we already have our loose canoe. So, we have Tyro.
Fights back with those sharp teeth. Go, Tyro!
And Toxic! Whoa, that's not something that you want to see.
Exactly, those are some pretty sharp teeth.
And as Rafe Hates Caleb says in chat, them steaks went bad. And arachnids. Arachnids are something to be feared. I don't care who you are. I don't care how long you've been playing. Arachnids are something to be feared.
All right, he's going to look for the second trap tile here. Well, he's going to try this one first. There's 2 trap tiles over here in the Hall of Giants, so you want to be sure you check both of them. The other fight he saw was the Imps Imps, and that was what would be on the Earth trap tiles throughout the dungeon. There's one more that's down at the armory, or would-be armory, on the 4th floor. But we wouldn't have access to that anyways, because we don't have Rod.
Right. Well, and I do want to kind of like bring it back to, for those of you who are brand new to the Final Fantasy Randomizer community or just popping into the Final Fantasy.
He's leaving. This surprises me because he has Warp. I guess there's a concern for number of charges, but you've got Nuke and you've got Warp. That's a good recipe to go to the Vampire.
Yeah, I think he might be. I mean, I think Burt knows how good Thunder is, and he's trying to weigh his risks. And I think Burt is trying to figure out, all right, do I gamble on a necessary key item in that Earth check, or should I go to Ordeals and potentially try to get a 1-up on him using those warp charges and Ordeals to get even better levels and the possibility of an even more significant key item?
In Crescent Lake, we find a crown so cheap it probably came from non-brand affiliated fast food restaurant. But a crown for a mere 155 gold. That is a big pickup for Thunderclaude.
Yeah,
Burt will not be far from getting it as well.
Yeah, well, as chat's saying, that's a beautiful bug. It's one of it. We have very few bugs now in the Final Fantasy Randomizer. Ooh, and the cube from the Circle of Sages. So anytime you have the crown as your shop item, it is going to be exactly 155 gold. And anytime you have the loot as the shop item, it is going to be exactly the maximum price possible, which is somewhere around the 65,000 gold range. And I believe our devs have already fixed that for our next beta update, but we'll have to wait until 65,535, as our wonderful tracker Shadow Flames is informing me. And so we will.
Right. Also, big thanks to Shadow for tracking today.
Yeah, and Caleb correcting me. 65,422 is the loot bug. It's close. It's close. Give me a break here. I'm rounding.
Hey, I've always tried to warn people, don't do math while live on Twitch. It'll always betray you.
Yeah, that's why I tried to round. I don't consider rounding math.
Rounding is math.
Fine. No math! Okay, I got you.
Thunderclaude has gone to Ice Cave, which is an interesting play. I think he's around level 6 to 8 right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not a ton of charges to do this with, but when you've got that warp, it's a compelling play because of your ability to skip like more than half of the Ice Cave.
Yeah. So I want to step back a little bit and kind of see our situation. At the moment, we have open canal, we have our canoe, we have no loose key items anymore, and we have no northern docks. So between our runners, we have a limited number of key items. They are Earth Cave, Ice Cave, Volcano Incentive, and Ordeals. And one of those is going to have the floater in it. And with floater, you can end up getting to all of your other key item checks and your final bosses. Which one they decide to do and whether or not they risk, like in Thunder's case, risking a low level dive like he's doing in Ice versus Burt, who's prioritizing getting enough levels to feel safe and confident in his ability to full clear whatever dungeon he goes into. And it looks like Burt is heading... It looks like he's going to make the Ordeals play. So
I would have really liked to see a Volcano play here.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the nuke, we've got the warp, which makes it virtually free to get out of Volcano, even just on one warp. But there's two trap tiles in particular you can get to, along with all that treasure. So if there's a big defensive item that could help you, if there's a ribbon that could help you, you've got a chance at those. You've got a couple of trap tiles that you can check, and almost whatever's there, you're going to be able to clear out with 1 to 2 nukes. So I really would like a Volcano play in this scenario. But Burt is...
he's doing the crown turn.
It looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't see... It looks like... Did Thunder wipe out, or did he warp out?
I think he reset on a trance encounter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And, Burt making the play. Burt with a big brain play, heading directly to turn in that crown. Gets his floater. Burt's going to be in the air in less than 15 minutes. And based on Thunder's routing, he's probably going to do Ice Cave first, then head down to Volcano, and then do that crown turn in. And so you're going to see Burt pick up a couple minutes just by the fact that he doesn't need to travel through that river system. He can take his airship, which travels substantially faster, and really cut down on his travel time.
Right now, Thunder is probably losing more time to that Lit 2 than he is in actual travel because he is reset out of this Ice Cave again. Chet saying the greed. That was actually no greed. He was walking up to the correct spot to be able to use warp to get all 3 of those treasure chests, and he died on his way to that step. But there was no greed there.
Yeah, I want to pull up BurtReynoldz checking level 4 white magic, finding life 2 and fade. And also temper in the black magic. So
now,
it does look like
silver plus 5 is a huge armor find for those mages.
Absolutely. I mean, and where he's at the levels where throwing that silver plus 5 on the black belt is actually a worthwhile play until you get that black belt up to a level that his absorb is going to overcome that silver plus 5. Yeah, cheese point.
Trace again. They're so common in here, and that's the kind of thing. I try to listen to what the seed is telling me, and right now, this seed is telling me ice is not the place to be.
Yeah, but at the same time, if that incentive item is the floater or some other kind of key item, don't be a dud. Don't be a dud. The tail, and you see the response from Thunder. Not what he was wanting. He's going to warp out of this.
Reset out of it.
Yeah.
All right, Burt gonna check with Sarda, who claims he wants to help us save the world. He just doesn't make that easy. Well, he's got things a little backwards today. He's holding the ruby.
Mm-hmm.
Which incidentally means that Titans was floater lock, which is not common, but it has happened. Actually, I guess it's more common than I'm thinking firsthand, but
yeah, and we do have, and I did mention earlier, we do have duds. We do have 2 duds in this particular flag set. So, gold rolled -4. I think we knew that. And a chime in a box. Okay, so that means that we already have chime and cube. So we are open for an early skydive. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Burt does. I have a feeling he's not going to do the early sky, but maybe he's going to prove me wrong.
I don't feel like the levels are there, except that you could dive the first floor and just nuke everything in sight. That would actually be a pretty good walking grind right now.
Yeah,
but
and it's
going to be the order of the day, and he'll probably sell that gold bracelet to help afford them. But first, he's going to get the bottle check in, looking for more bonus experience.
Yeah, this is. It looks like Thunder pulled up Nightmares and Evil Men, which they only hit for 100 something. That's and Burt getting the white shirt from that bottle turn in. That Evilman tile could be a decent early party grind, but it looks like he doesn't need a house. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Thunder just drop into the armory, pray for a house, or just not listen to me and go wherever he wants.
Burt's going to check Ice Cave first. Notably, he did not save outside. Hopefully he has a save back at Crescent Lake, because this is going to be every bit as hard for him as it was for Thunder.
Yeah, but I love the play, though. I really like this play, because Burt knows he's low level. He knows he also has the warp and nuke charges. If he can survive this dive, it means that he has the ability to survive the dive.
Here's the rate to the enemies.
If he gets wiped to this, he knows that he needs to level up before he redives, and he'll be closer to his next location before, as opposed to having to warp out. And it looks like Burt's nodding his head. Yep, it looks like I'm going to Volcano instead.
Now, there was the big advantage of having the floater and airship before Thunder did, is getting to this volcano was so much faster from Ice Cave because of that. And you can argue that with Burt coming in to Volcano, Thunder already being on the incentive floor, that they're essentially even at this point. But we're going to have to see, obviously Burt has the floater, but it's going to depend on, does Thunder complete what he wants to do in the volcano and then go directly to go get his floater, or is he going to stick around for too long or get wiped? It looks like he's going to warp out completely and then do a save, and I can imagine him going directly down to Elfland to save up,
to then hit Northwest Castle for the Crown turn-in, and then head up to Dwarves for the Adamant turn-in. I don't think that's going to give him a substantial time advantage, but I think he's definitely going to start putting the pieces together and potentially pick up some ground.
For Burt, that was some lucky turn order as they killed the Black Mage who already had cast Nuke instead of the one who was about to cast Nuke, so he was still able to clear that encounter out. Now all of a sudden, he's up in the, not quite the teens just yet, but the pre-teens levels, if you will. And that is going to be, in particular, a lot more spell charges.
Yeah, I think another thing that's just interesting here in terms of just an information play. Burt doesn't know about the fighter tile. Thunder just found the fighter tile in the vanilla red D trap tile, and a fighter tile is going to be a better, more efficient grind than trying to prey against some evil men and some nightmares, or even picking up a couple of those outside Crescent Lake fights. So in terms of a grind, Thunder...
The Agama tile, which is also a very compelling fight.
Yeah. So it looks like, Thunder picking up at least an information advantage when it comes to grind tiles compared to Burt, who has essentially the exploration and level advantage.
A big moment here for Thunder. He's turning in the crown, getting the floater. So what has Burt been able to do versus Thunder when you look at that right now? And it's really just a few more levels, and he's also seeing the bottle turn in. So Thunder is likely to do a couple of fetch quest things here and tread the same ground that Burt already did. And now that Burt is going to go in here at these levels, that Lit 2 is nowhere near as scary, and he's got a lot more nuke charges to just throw out at anything that gets in his way.
Yeah. And I like what CC points out in chat, that Thunder's gonna route in that fighter grind at some point to make sure that as he goes down to carry, he's gonna have enough charges to get down there, pick up those extra levels, and just blow carry to oblivion. I can anticipate Thunder's going to try to do a couple more key item checks in the meantime, and we'll see if Burt ends up checking some of these trap tiles down in ice, and maybe there's a 3-eye grind, or maybe even a quad Agama grind or a solo Agama grind that Thunder didn't find.
Well, who am I to argue with Burt, but I don't know why he's using a nuke charge on that instead of Fire 3. They do have a vulnerability to fire, so it's a great time to use that and save nuke for enemies that don't have that.
Yeah, I think he's got enough spell charges that it doesn't quite matter a lot, but...
Well, and I guess if you're worried that they're going to live through one, which they may have done in an earlier dive, you want to be sure you're dead rather than casting these Lit 2s.
Right, yeah, there's definitely a... there's two different strategies when you hit encounters. You're either going to run, which is the primary strategy because it's faster. But when you know that the encounter that you have is going to be a dangerous one, throwing out a very high level spell to try to completely wipe your opponent before they can try to throw their ugliness at you is a good strategy.
Smithy McBeard's sword gives us the TNT, and in turn, Narek is going to give us the Oxyale. So the dwarves, they're feuding today like the Hatfields and McCoys, but we get the Oxyale as a result.
Yeah, and I can anticipate Thunder... Ooh, Thunder hasn't done the Sarda check yet, has he?
I did not see it.
Yeah. So I think Thunder, this is his first look at level 3 and 4 magic. He's going to pick up these Ooh, Burt finding a Saria tile.
They look pretty
they're
durable that they survived at over 280, so I don't really like this fight.
Yeah. I mean, maybe if his black belt was already at a very high level, that might be worth it, but they're a little bit too beefy. Sir Link-a-Lot in chat saying about 400-ish in terms of HP. That's a little too high for this state.
Yeah, Burt looks to have run out of magic because Nuke and Warp are on the same level. That's the downside of that. But with that short floor, he wisely walked it and then took another Warp off. So he really only had to walk one floor, which was not terrible.
Yeah, and I think what we're going to see from Thunder, I think he's going to head over to Sarda. He's going to pick up his Ruby from Sarda. Or, no, he's going directly down. Where is he going?
This is Ordeals.
Yeah. Yep, he's doing Ordeals play. Which is a good move. He's still relatively low level. There's 3 trap tiles here. And the average enemy in Ordeals is going to give you more experience than the average enemy in some of these other locations, plus having that early fire 3. Very
interesting here for Burt. He finds 4 Frosties on the Grey Worm tile. And they're not that high on HP. Now, they resisted the first round of nukes, but probably under... I'm almost positive they're under 300 HP. I think they were around 280 there. So that's actually a pretty good fight. They just happened to resist the first time, so it looks like they've got a lot of HP because of the nukes, but they were low-roll nukes.
Yeah, and I want to point out something that someone said in chat. +4 magic, what is this, Dungeons & Dragons? Actually, kind of. Those of you who...
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you play Dungeons & Dragons, specifically, 5e, then you're going to understand, especially the magic system in this game, far better than people who have not played Dungeons & Dragons, because you have spell slots. So the difference is you don't have an MP pool that all of your magic pulls out of. What you have is spell slots. So the lower the level your spells, the more times you're able to cast that individual spell. And a lot of the strategy in this game is identifying what spell slots you have or what spells you have available at each slot, and then deciding how and when to level up and use those spells most efficiently.
All right, so I want to talk about Warp for a minute. The Randomizer opens up some great strategies for us that were not possible in the vanilla game. Warp was locked behind class change. So if you came to Castle Ordeals, well, by now you ought to know the way through it because it's the same filler maze every time. In the vanilla game, in Randomizer, it gets changed all around. But a counterplay, because we can learn Warp with it being at a different level, we're able to just use a Warp to go back to the last pillar if we chose wrong. That was also the same move that they used in the Ice Cave to be able to open 3 treasures at once, including the incentive location, without having to do any trap tile fights.
Yeah, and just the nature of being a randomizer, I believe Warp is typically a very high spell. I can't remember offhand, but the original devs did not intend for players to be able to have Warp at Ice Cave or Ordeals or even Temple of Fiends. So you can actually see Warp strats. Jat telling me it's level 5 in vanilla, but promotion locked. Yes.
Very much promotion locked. I say that as somebody who runs Fun fact, on the PSP version, I went and checked it one day, and the actual properties of Warp are different, and it takes you to a fixed point instead of where you were standing. So even if you had access to Warp pre-class change, like from Randomizer or something on the PSP version, you still wouldn't be able to do this strat. It's NES only.
Yeah, and we have another question in chat coming up about the pluses and minuses that are happening at the end of each of these weapons and armor. And what we call that is burst classing. Again, kind of a throwback to Dungeons & Dragons. Dungeons & Dragons typically has more blessings than curses, but if you see a plus or a minus at the end of a weapon or armor, then that means that you're going to have either buffs to that item or you're going to have nerfs to that item. In particular, if you have... Actually, you know what? I'm going to look up the particulars because I can never remember them, and I keep
cover a couple quick things here, because Burt from the Red D trap tile there, he's going to carry now with those nukes armed. Thunderclaude got the slab out of Castle Ordeals. Burt has also picked up the Adamant now, which means he's got that much more experience. Is he going to go back to the trap tile after dispatching Carrie? We shall find out soon, because Carrie does not usually live through too many casts of Nuke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see Burt potentially even doing a play where he takes out Carrie, steps on the crystal to actually like get his orb, and then go right back to that fighter trap tile.
Carrie down. We're going to have our first orb of the game at the 27-minute mark. And Burt is gone. He has taken his orb and leaving. He didn't like that trap tile enough. Alright, so Burt is going to do the Adamant turn in. And he will find out Smithy McBeard's sword is holding on to the TNT. And Thunder's going to do some camera adjustment strats while landing at Melmond.
Yeah, and I did go back and I have, for these Blurst weapons and armor, what we do have for Blurst weapons is for every point, whether it's up or down, you're going to have 2 damage per bonus. And increase your hit by 3. And increase your crit by 3 points, which is essentially 1.5%. For your armor, if you have a normal armor type, it's going to increase your absorb by 1. If it's a body armor, it's going to increase by 2. It's going to reduce the weight penalty by 1 per bonus, or by 2 if it's a body armor. And so that's where. Go ahead. Sorry.
Chad would like to know how much time he saves with camera manip. The answer is 6.
Yes, absolutely. So part of the reason we like those Silver Plus 5s is they're actually going to increase your absorb by 12, which is a lot.
It's even going to make it better than base Opal Bracelet.
Yeah, well, and not only that, you're also going to decrease your evade penalty by 12 as well, which means that you are going to be more evasive as well as having more absorb, and it is a phenomenal piece of armor. Granted, if you do have your gold -4s, that means that they have 8 less absorb and a worse hit penalty. So that's why we would do the silver 6 over the gold -4.
Big moment here. Burt is back into the volcano. He left, he saved the orb, but he is coming back, so it looks like we're going to get the black belt grind here. But he has healed his party up after crossing that lava. The lava is a great way to reduce their HP when you want to do a solo grind. But it looks like he wants them alive long enough for the black belt to get his offense going.
Yeah, I
all
can anticipate.
And all you get is this lousy bit of gold.
Yeah, so that counts as one of our dud items. There's going to be one other dud incentive location here in the game. And who knows where that's going to be. But the fact that Thunder already knows where one of them is actually gives him a little bit of a knowledge advantage.
And those zombies are not a terribly unwelcome encounter, although, again, they're being a little resilient to going down as they survived the first nuke, which is unfortunate. The nice thing about these overworld fights, though, is your ability to restore the MP quite quickly, and you're never out. Whereas diving all the way through the dungeon, there's that concern sometimes you're going to be out of spells by the end.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, and, I guess with Burt, by taking care of Carrie, there's a quick way out of Volcano when he finishes this black belt grind. And as anticipated, he's getting his mages up to around level 20, and now he's going to start taking out his mages. Oh, he's warping out.
He's warping out, so he's going to save everything. Is he going to go back in for the solo grind, or is he just calling it that? Honestly, if he's keeping everybody alive, I don't know why he didn't walk to the warp exit.
Well, Jacob were pointing out in chat, he was asking whether or not that was Death Touch, and I didn't see whether or not those fighters had Death Touch, but if they did, then
instantly,
yeah, that would be something to leave. And it looks like Thunder, with one nuke, takes out those nightmares and evil men. That is a great, for them to have such low level. That's a great initial grind until you feel like your black belt's at a point where they can actually take out the fighters on their own.
This is one of the best trap tiles to have a grind fight available on. This would, in the base game, be the fires, but because of the properties of the game, if there is a door on the wall, then that tiles along that wall will not have a fight on them unless it is a trap tile fight, like say you see at the waterfall or the blue dragon guarding the cube. So by going up and down here, Thunder will never see a random encounter fight. He will only see the trap tile fight here. So, like, if the eyes are going to be anywhere, that's perhaps the best tile in the game for them to be on. Few places could maybe be a little bit better, like Temple of Fiends. But ease of access, it's just off the charts good. Speaking of waterfall...
Yeah, I was just going to say, Burt heading into the waterfall, typically not a very dangerous place to be, but we'll see if he encounters anything that's nasty. Or again, there is that trap tile by the robot, and we'll find out if that's a worthwhile trap tile, because it runs into the same issue that you just mentioned for that Evil Men Nightmare tile.
Thunderclaude is coming back for that fighter title. And you can see what the lava has done. He's gonna heal up Deng, and that's probably just to make sure he clears out the Evilman fight. He's gonna heal up Ale as well, so I guess he wants some levels there before dedicating it to the black belt. Oh, we're gonna get the rod without having to face the trap tile, but does Burt... Oh, it's Astos! That robot was Astos all along!
Yeah, and again, that's one of those things about the Astos trap tile. You kind of like shuffled Astos. You never know exactly where he's going to be, and yeah, it's always a surprise. And it looks like Thunder is back at that fighter trap tile. He's getting Ale and Dang up at slightly higher levels. We don't think that he has seen the Death Touch, but he has identified the Quad X, and Quad X is a insta-death spell. It's I want to say it's power word death, where if you have 300 HP or less, instant death. And that is what he's casting on those fighters to make them, power word kill. That's going to just take them out in one round.
So Ribbon is a big find as far as the random treasures go, and now BurtReynoldz with the Oxyl has the chance to go to the Sea Shrine. I did see Brack, but I don't remember if it was learnable or class change locked. If he has Brack, this is going to feel a lot safer than otherwise. But either way, BurtReynoldz is going to go to the Sea Shrine here at 35 minutes in. First fight is the Sahags, which were unrunnable vanilla, and that was one of the nice changes that our devs have been able to make, is they've moved things around. And so now basically any of the random encounters can be runnable or can be unrunnable, versus in yesteryear, the Sahags and the Iron Gulls would always be unrunnable. We just never saw Iron Gulls, so didn't realize that one as much.
Yeah, and we do have. It looks like Thunder is again focusing on that fighter grind, but he has also completely unequipped his black belt, so he's hoping for his black belts to get wiped at some point soon. But now that his black belt is definitely hitting for a one hit, he's feeling very confident, despite not knowing whether or not, as was pointed out in chat, whether or not there was a death touch.
Sharknado turns out to be a very interesting trap tile. The Nagas maybe are a little high on the HP, but the Waters didn't do too bad this time around. Now, this one is so deep in the dungeon, it's not something you'd ever come back to, but it looks like those waters are only around 250 HP.
Yeah, and waters are a great bunch of experience if you're able to take them down in one shot like that. So we'll see. Yeah, it looks like Bert's doing a nice little water Naga grind, and we'll see if that ends up being. I mean, it's a much, much, much better party grind. You can't really do a solo grind on this, but in terms of getting his whole party levels, this is a good place to be.
A 21 black belt is probably enough to get past Kraken. It's not as safe as you might like, but he's basically gotten the rest of his party to Temple of Fiends levels now. It wouldn't be strange at all to take the rest of the party there with, say, a 32 or 42 black belt.
Yeah, and we should probably talk a little bit about black belts and what makes them. Yeah, I mean they're kind of a contentious party choice for a lot of people in the community because they are ridiculously overpowered once you get them to the level 32 or 42 range. At the same time, they're very weak up until that point. So one of the things you might notice is that as our players are hitting enemies, you'll see 5 hits, 3 hits, or something like that with an amount of damage. So again, very similar to Dungeons and Dragons, your stats determine how many swings you get. And
that Sentry, Thunder's in a little bit of trouble here. He can't take 2 more hits like that. He's going to try and run. That's risky, but the Sentry misses and he gets away. That was some high drama for Thunder, who nearly lost his entire level grind.
Yeah, and that's the other danger with black belts, and part of the reason that... Oh, was he just trying to find out whether or not the Sentry grind was going to be a better grind than the Fighters?
Maybe because you could go back to the Agamas for more efficiency and not face any random encounters. Okay, we do have Brag for BurtReynoldz, so he's firing those away. It works about 1 in 5 on Kraken, so we've already seen 2 tries. That doesn't mean you'll succeed next round, but when you have enough charges to throw out there, odds are in your favor that it's going to work.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that black belt is not doing very much damage, and Burt just did a grind, so this might be a little bit tense. Ooh, Ice 2 coming out and taking out that black belt. Granted, the black belt really wasn't doing much of anything in that fight.
With a few Invis stacks up now, you should be a lot less susceptible to physical hits. He's nowhere near max evade yet, as Kraken so aptly demonstrated there. But there the Brack works, and he gets a bunch of experience for those 2 mages, and Life 2 is going to make it like nothing even happened. That was tense, but he made it through. And that time, Thunderclaude still takes a bunch of damage from those sentries. Good thing he didn't miss.
Yeah, that again, just a very, very tense moment, because we're talking about 5 to 10 minutes that he's been spending down here on this grind, and you would either have to redo that 5 to 10 minute grind or make the decision that it's just not worth it and risk a lower level black belt.
Burt is heading to the Earth Cave. He's armed with the rod, already with 2 orbs restored, looking to make it 3, while Thunder is working on the first orb restored.
Yeah,
Last time he moved away, he wasn't 32 yet. I'm not sure if he was thinking he would get 32 on the way to carry or what, but he decided to get that extra offense. Is a strong move for carry. If you're going to do it with just the one party member, you want to be 100% sure you're going to get the kill.
Yeah, I want to say he left at level 33. And again, just going back to kind of how the hits work, at level 32, you're going to get 2 additional hits for that black belt. So you're talking 2 more chances to do damage and 2 more chances to crit, which black belts typically have a very, very high crit rate. And that's part of what makes them so devastating.
One of the things, I like to call this nuke and run strats, and Burt happens to be literally doing it with nuke. He's casting Nuke and he's running away with everybody else. So either way, he's done with the fight in one turn, and it gets him away from it, which is a beautiful thing as we get the crystal from behind the vampire. I always call it Nuke and Run strats, but it doesn't matter what spell you do it with as long as it's going to be good enough to kill him. But in this case, he happens to literally be doing it with Nuke.
Yeah, and I'd say, especially, it's interesting.
There's the arachnids. And they have status poison, so they're trying to turn us into a statue.
And that particular look and nod was directly at Danny, our wonderful behind-the-scenes person who's been setting up a lot of these broadcasts, rolling a lot of seeds, working to make sure that you guys get to experience Final Fantasy live with broadcast and with amazing trackers. And you know what? For some reason, those arachnids she rolls always have something.
The game knows. Thunderclaude is here, and we found out earlier that this robot was Astos all along. Thunderclaude is about to find out that piece of information.
Yeah, we are noticing something interesting on BurtReynoldz' side, in that he's going out of his way to check treasure chests. And typically when you're running a black belt seed, especially if you've dedicated to some grinds, you do not open boxes. It's one of the reasons that black belts can be faster than a fighter or a thief that requires some extra defense or weaponry.
He went out of his way to check the trap tiles in that Earth armory, and he did not go down to the other room that has 3 more. So I think we're actually seeing him go more out of his way to look for a better trap tile, and he happened to be checking the treasures along the way. Thunderclaude is finished with his black belt grind. He's already got 32. He's not going to do another static grind just to get to 40-42. That ribbon is +5, which is now a very welcome addition to Thunderclaude's inventory. And Orb, number 3 for BurtReynoldz.
Yeah, and Crabcake's pointed out in chat that Thunder needs to remember Sarda. I think Sarda had the ruby, which led to, I want to say, the chime, and Thunder doesn't know that. So if he doesn't remember that he needs to do that Sarda check, then you might see Thunder starting to get a little nervous, and hopefully he doesn't get confused about what locations he's already checked.
A crystal for the herb? My, how vanilla can we get? Well, it's going to happen once in a while when you're randomizing things around. But BurtReynoldz is going to take that herb, go see the prince, and wake him up from his nap.
Now, if he has the key, is this even randomized?
It's a Saber -3. It's definitely randomized.
All right, so let's kind of step back to the rest of our incentive items. That was our second dud. So we have Sky, floor 2, could have an incentive item, and Key-Locked Canaria can have an incentive item. So it looks like we're going to find our key here in Sky, and we're going to find our incentive Katana in the Key-Locked Marsh. Key-Locked Canaria.
Or vice versa?
Well, I mean, you can't have the key in Key-Lock. But yeah, as Jack pointing out, BurtReynoldz is heading into Sky, and our favorite robot chicken is found on the Bridge of Destiny, which is the one long bridge that leads from the Sky Maze up to Tiamat. And in our previous flag set, the one that we did for our pod races, Warmech was vanilla. But in this flag set, Warmech is required. So if Burt is taking a risk here. There is no guarantee that he's going to be able to make it past Warmech. And he's going to be hoping that with his nukes, fades, and his black belt where he is, that he's going to be okay against this Warmech.
He's in the mid-20s. His levels aren't bad, but he doesn't have that insane killing power that a level 32 black belt does. But he does add a key for his trouble. So, Chad has pointed out he's probably hoping more for the nuke strats to work. It's going to be a damage race with this, but he's got 4 characters who can do pretty decent damage on round 1. Because Warmech is a boss, he's not going to have clamped 100% HP like the random encounters will do. So Bert's probably hoping that Warmech rolled a little low here.
Yeah, and this Warmech also gives us a little bit of a picture of what our Topher is going to look like. Essentially, the harder Warmech is, the easier Topher is going to be. Because Warmech shares a spell list and skill list with the other bosses in the Temple of Fiends Revisited. So if Warmech comes out with a nuke or a Cure 4 or something like that, that means you're not going to be seeing that coming up in Temple of Fiends Revisited.
Here comes the bridge for BurtReynoldz. Now, this is also a place of high encounters and lots of good experience encounters, but that green blob is gonna be our Warmech. Thunderclaude has class changed, so all spells unlocked now. And here we go with Warmech. Ice 2 fires off. That's a pretty mild spell. You were talking about it. Everything that Warmech has is something that the Fiends Revisited and Chaos do not have. Only 100 damage on that hit from the Black Belt is not much. Physical hit was not bad from that Warmech that it didn't one-shot the Black Mage. Ooh, fast is at level 8, so Burt has absolutely no access to it now. We knew that he didn't have it, but Warmech is down. Not very high on the HP, but very high on the experience. Tiamat time. Time for the revenge of Brackstrats. Oh, what do you think, Davis? Were Burt pretty relieved that the Warmech went that well?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there are a couple different bosses that you're really worried about. A required Warmech is number 1, and then the second one is Kraken 2. And we'll see how Temple of Fiends Revisited goes with kind of a paper Warmech, to be honest.
Well, all 4 orbs for BurtReynoldz. I don't think he's ready for Topher yet, because he's not 32. So he's going back to whatever his favorite trap tile was, and that appears to be Northwest Castle.
Yeah, so there's 2 more trap tiles here in Northwest Castle. There's another trap tile in Topher Locked, and I'm thinking that Burt's going to try to rely on these as opposed to going back to that fighter tile that Thunder used.
Troll's not very good. So he's checking these. So it wouldn't be pretty, but one option would be the early floors of Temple of Fiends Revisited itself. You'd have to keep a mage alive to warp you out of there.
Yeah, I mean, there is the potential for that. I mean, even there is one more trap tile that's down in the Temple of Fiends Revisited. That's a huge risk. But if it happens to be something that's worthwhile, it's an option.
I think he's coming back to the Tyro here. He's much higher level. He's got much more magic defense. So this is considerably safer than it was in the early game. And even though I'm on Team Tyro, I have to admit this is probably... Oh boy, they have a lot of HP. This is not gonna be that great. Gargoyles are just lousy. I mean, he probably killed... He may just kind of do this because what else is he going to do? But over 500 HP on those Tyros is not good for any kind of level grind like this.
Yeah, and I don't...
He is taking the risk of that toxic.
Yeah. Now, the one benefit is, and again, this is another thing that goes to Black Belts, that Black Belts gain an extra 4 MDef for every level, as opposed to the Masters, which only gain 1 death, M death for every level. So Toxic is dangerous for pretty much every character except for that black belt. And Toxic might actually be a good thing in this case, because you don't have to worry about getting punched out, and it's actually going to take care of your mages probably right around the time you want it to.
Given the levels, his magic defense is good enough on that black belt. He's probably pretty safe there from the Toxic. Of course, the mages are pretty vulnerable to it. And he was probably willing to risk it because it was so easy to get out of here if that happened. But you can see it's down to 2 now. Don't know which character had the ribbon. You'd kind of assume it was the white mage.
Yeah, typically, though, with this particular seed, maybe you throw it on a black belt to make sure you get some higher level charges, especially if Burt is correctly thinking that there is a level 8 fast and chooses to promote.
A question in chat, does the Ruby do anything once you have the airship? It absolutely does, because one of our wonderful developers, Nitz, had this idea a couple of years ago of, what if I moved the Titan? So instead of standing in the middle of his cave, he's standing over in the western corridor where the 3 paths meet. So you cannot get to those 4 treasures unless you feed the Titan the Ruby.
Oh no.
Once you start putting on incentives, that means you can't get to that incentive check without having the Ruby.
Oh no.
And here goes Burt in Temple of Fiends.
Thunder doesn't remember the Sarda check. He thinks that he didn't buy the he thinks he didn't buy the vendor item. He forgot that he got his crown as the vendor item, and now he's just going back and doing rechecks. I mean, Burt could easily wipe out a Topher. Thunder not remembering that he didn't check Sarda. It's really going to be a matter of how long does it take for Thunder to remember his Sarda check, and that's what he's doing now. He's looking through all of his items and trying to figure out, hey, what did I not turn in? What did I not do? Did I do the king? He's going to find out that he did. But
Burt has found, real quick, Burt has found the seafood party platter on that last trap tile. That's just not good enough. There's not another trap tile for him to get through in this Temple of Fiends, and he's not seeing random encounters. So
Thunder finally going down to Sarda. He still has Sky to do, but the amount of time that he's lost from not going to Sarda, Burt's going to have to pray that these fiends are just paper, and it looks like he's going out to get some levels.
He's 6 levels away from that black belt being the wrecking machine he was meant to be. He's got to find it somewhere. I don't know what the answer is for him right now. Where does he go? What does he do? I kind of said it back at Earth that I almost think he just had to do the Tyros anyways, because what else was he going to do? Well, he is gonna be just go for Topher.
Yeah, and in chat pointing out he had 0 heal pots, so he went down to pick up 99 heal pots before really doing his dive. Thunder is gonna run through this Mirage Tower, and I can anticipate that Burt is gonna just do a prayer knowledge dive. He's gonna go in, he's gonna find out how bad are these fiends. He's gonna nuke everything out and just see if he can nuke through this. And if he can, he's definitely going to take this. But if he finds any resistance here in Topher, this would be Thunder's game to lose.
Now, if he had a Moss Immune, this would be a completely different scenario, because although you don't think of the Black Belt as a Moss Immune wielder, the damage would be quite good with it right now. So, yeah, a great point from CC. Crabcakes in chat says he does not have fast, and that is a major factor too, because you can't get those extra hits that you would.
But you do have level 2 temper, I think. So again, it's one of those, or defense or bonk. Like any one of those would make this safe. I don't think Burt is going for safe. I think Burt is going for Thunder is a great runner. I don't have a good option, so I'm gonna pray that I can get through this and beat him on a risky strat as opposed to doing a safe strat.
All right, well, we are a few moments away from finding out what the Fiend's revisited fight looks like. BurtReynoldz is onto the Earth floor. Thunderclaude has gained his key, and with that go mode, he does have his level grind done. It's a over 32, looks like 35 now. Black belt. Actually, with class change, that's now a master.
Now, I assume I don't remember. I haven't seen it. I assume that we do have a life cast on with that white mage.
Yes,
it's like level 4.
Level. They've got plenty of charges.
Yeah. So with that level 4 life, Burt has to hope that white mage survives.
Typically, the white mage has the ribbon on. He moved it around earlier.
Yeah, like if he loses a black belt, a black mage, that's okay. Even losing the black belt where his levels are is not the worst thing in the world. But if he loses that white mage, I'd say before Tia, then there's little hope for him succeeding in this dive.
Lich down, that's not really a surprise, but the HP looked a little low. Now we're on to the fire floor where Carrie will attempt to be our next gatekeeper.
Yeah, and Thunder making his way to the Bridge of Destiny, he's going to find out that Warmech is really not going to be much of a hurdle. And I didn't see where Thunder's levels were. He might be nearing that 40-41 range on that black belt.
35 with the last level up I saw, which was...
Okay, so he'll probably get to 36 or 37. He's not going to be looking for 42.
Now, again, if he was going to look for 40, he would have done that with the 1 level grind. You don't ever stop and do a 2nd level grind unless you're extremely desperate.
Yeah,
and the black belt and the white mage on Burt's side. The pressure is on. He throws out the Cure Force to try and bail us out. Down to 1 knee is the black belt, but fires back enough damage. Carrie is terminated. And there's the Life 2 doing its thing. Best healing spell in the game. It does 1 more HP than Cure 4 does.
Yeah, and Burt is coming up to what I consider, honestly, to be the real final boss of this game, which is Kraken 2. Kraken 2 punches for a lot of hits, and every one of those hits does significant damage. Kraken, we also haven't seen a nuclear. We haven't seen some of these ugly spells and skills come out. Burt is praying for a first turn ink.
And he's leaving the black belt in front of the party, so he's casting Brack? This is not casting Brack on Kraken 1 by any stretch. As Nuclear comes out, this is a bad piece of information for BurtReynoldz. It's exactly what he didn't need. He's trying to 3 and 256 this fight with the Brack casting. He says, that's my best chance to get through. The black belt is just there for the evades, trying to keep the party alive. Cure 4 on the white mage. Again, just trying to survive this somehow, some way. Down to 1 knee as the black belt. The white mage gets a chance to survive. Nuclear is an ability, so we haven't seen spells yet from Kraken.
Well, and you'll notice that Kraken, on that hit on that black belt, only did a couple hundred damage. So you see Burt just switched from nuke strats back to Brack strats. I'm thinking that Burt wants to conserve as much of those nuke casts as humanly... Ooh, and Thunder! Oh! Thunder is not what you want to see.
That was another ability that came out, so it's going Nuclear Thunder on that list. What a list that is. That is certainly enough to take care of a lot of mages. He could try doing it with Wall, but it feels like the only plan here is hope for Brack to work. He's gotten enough shots off to make it a real chance, but not a good one.
Yeah, and...
Nuclear again! Now, that could be a 2-skill list, or that could be a second Nuclear, because there are 4 in the list. But if Thunder comes out, he's done for. Oh, yeah.
Oh, nuclear number 3!
3 nuclears and a Thunder. That was a lot. And now BurtReynoldz knows he needs a very big black belt to get through that fight.
Yep, he has the information now. I assume where he is, he's going for that Saria grind. Thunder, it's now his match to lose. Considering what that Kraken 2 is sending out, most likely he's going to survive the nuclear, and he's going to hope that he has a lot of hits and that Kraken has low absorb.
Chat wants to know about Thunder's levels, so once again, he's in the 30s. The biggest thing we do not know about that Kraken right now is how much HP. Burt did not do a lot of damage. He probably did 300 to 400 between the various actions he took. So, to say that Kraken is more than that is not really saying anything at all.
Right. I think, even the fact that Kraken hit that black belt for only about 200 damage, really the biggest fear with Kraken is that physical damage. Unless Kraken does nuclear to take out both
Carry
of
with nuke! Carry just devastates Thunder's party. He needs to get through this without the White Wizard dying. Carry gives a free turn with that stun, and Thunderclaude is through, but wow, that nuke we didn't see the first time with BurtReynoldz, and it could have been devastating. That's some drama. That could have brought BurtReynoldz right back into this thing.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here processing what we just watched, and again, knowing that we have.
Wow! Now that's a trap tile. BurtReynoldz has just found 2 to 4 gas dragons.
Ooh, and did you see that? One of them went down with 1 nuke, so it looks like they're low rolling the HP. That is going to be a very, very fast grind.
This is so high, I wouldn't worry about dropping people down. It would slow you down to drop people. Now, that doesn't mean you cure. I wouldn't heal that Black Mage there. In fact, I might even move the Black Mage to the front and see if we can get that one to go down just by random chance. But I just blast these as fast as I could. They are worth so much experience.
Yeah, I would... Ooh, another 4. I would consider, if he has Exit, keeping the white up. If he only has Warp, keeping up a Black Mage. It looks like he's probably got Exit.
A question in chat, is Burt going to 42? I don't think there's any consideration in his mind to not going 42. It's mandatory. The only thing he can say is if he's got the other Light Warriors alive, maybe he shouldn't go as high. But
so,
Thunder
is taking... Thunder taking Kraken 2. Kraken 2 coming out and just putting down his first Black Mage. He's casting fast and throwing Invis 2 out. It looks like he's going to try those defensive strats. I like Wall going on the Black Belt. There's that first nuclear coming out, but a lot of MDEF keeps those mages from getting a lot of hits. The Black Belt putting another 306 damage. Not as high as you want to see, but it's still going to start doing some work. Heal 2 coming out of that White Mage, trying to keep everyone at an even level. And Thunder coming out and just destroying that Black Mage. Thunder has no idea that he's got 2 nuclears that could be coming up after this ink.
That's a lot of HP. Got a free round with that ink, and ink is blocking the nuclear from coming back around. Thunderclaude is through the fight, and with life 2, that's not going to be nearly as devastating. On Burt's side, he has to go to 42 because he's figuring if I could get into Topher that early, so can Thunder. So he absolutely has to bank on something being a roadblock. Now, we've seen at least 2, if not 3 of the nuclears because we can't really be sure if that spell list wrapped or not, ability list wrapped or not. We've also seen 1 nuke. There's another at least in the pool, so there's stuff that can still slow him down, but I'm a little... For Burt's perspective, we've seen so much of the nastiness that there's not a lot left for Tia and Chaos right now.
Yeah, and there's and Swirl coming out from Tia, and there's typically one that is very punch happy, that just focuses on the physical damage, and I don't think we've seen that yet. We do see 10 hits, 800 coming out from that Black Belt, so unless that Black Belt, or unless Tia is going to just take out that White Mage right now, I think Thunder's going to be okay. It's really whether or not that White Mage is going to survive this fight.
Yeah, if Tia had done something to kill that White Mage, it may have set up a wipe to Chaos, but surviving there enables the life strats, and that's very powerful for Thunderclaude. Burt has finished his grind. I don't think he stopped at 32. I thought he would go further, but he's figuring, okay, that's probably enough, and maybe I'm getting in here close enough. Maybe Thunder takes a wipe at that Kraken.
Yeah, and right now, like, for Thunder, if this Chaos fight goes well, Thunder has this. If Chaos wipes him, Burt is right there. So, we're going to be looking to see, is Chaos going to be very punch happy? Is he going to do a lot of physical damage? We've already seen 3 nuclears come out of the pool. So magic-wise, this feels a little bit safer. So we'll have to see exactly what happens with this Chaos. And it looks like Thunder is starting with some fast casts, a punch, White Shirt being moved to that Black Mage, and Wall coming out for that Black Belt. Bane is the first spell coming out, and it takes out one of those Black Mages. Fast being cast to that Black Belt, 16 hits for 500 damage. He's going all offense at this point. He's tempering up that Black Belt, and he's going to throw out those Invis too.
A great round, and also great information that this Chaos is not high on his evade. Still getting 14 hits on that second try. That's 14 out of 16. So that's huge information right now, because the crits are going to catch up with Chaos eventually.
And with a max of about 4,000 damage, and doing about 900 to 1,000 per punch, I see about 1 or 2 more rounds. And there it is, Thunderclaude at 1 hour, 8 minutes, 26 seconds. Let's throw those GGs in chat for Thunderclaude, our first finalist here in the SpeedGaming Live 2020 tournament. BurtReynoldz continuing on his Topher dive, an amazing run by both of these runners. Wow, what a race.
Well earned by Thunderclaude. He had to really work for that one. Burt got there first. He just didn't have the levels. He tried a play to make it work. We know that play was really his best chance at this point. But he never really found a place he was happy to get the levels from. And all of that leads to a win for Thunderclaude. We will attempt to have our runners join us shortly. Yeah. Chat, what was your favorite moment? But meanwhile, for Thunderclaude, he will advance to the finals. That will be later tonight at 10:15 is the schedule as we are right now. Following us is going to be Cheeseinator versus Zenobian. That will be the other semifinals fight. Those two will do battle. The winner faces Thunderclaude later this evening. So make sure you stick around for a lot more Final Fantasy Randomizer action here as SG Live. We may be coming towards the end, which is nearer, but there is still plenty ahead.
Yeah, and this next match coming up, which they're going to start, they're going to set off the runners at 3 o'clock. So at 3:15, pretty much on the dot, you're going to be having the other semifinal match of Final Fantasy Randomizer. And we're going to end up finding out what our 2 finalists are going to go head-to-head around 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today. And, like Trenton said, this is going to be some great Final Fantasy Randomizer action this afternoon between some of the best runners that we have here in our community. And we are joined here in the booth by our winner, Thunderclaude. Thunder, GG's, man.
Thank you.
So how you feeling after that race? I mean, it's been kind of a crazy ride for you coming here, taking down Edgeworth last night, and now BurtReynoldz today. What are you thinking? How you feeling?
Oh, wow. Honestly, I felt really bad for this one. Kind of like how I did with Edge. I felt like I made a lot of early game mistakes, and then forgetting my Sarda check late in the game, I felt like that was enough reason for someone as good as BurtReynoldz to seal the deal against me in this race. But looks like that didn't happen. He looked like he was going in for low-level strats and Topher, and that's kind of in the back of my mind. I was kind of hoping that's the kind of play he would make, because he was a little nervous to race this race today, I know, so I kind of was hoping he was going to do something risky like that so I could still play slightly safe and be on time and try to win.
Thunder, do you track just from memory, or do you write down the checks?
I go from memory myself. And yeah, that the started check eluding me, a couple of reasons. I think the reset slightly messed with my check memory a little bit, but I've also, it feels like 90% of the time you run one of these flag set, or this seed, you get like a ruby before you get a floater, and so it's kind of like automatically thought once you have the airship, for me at least, that you've done Sarda and Titans. Like, it doesn't even process your mind that those are out there.
One of the biggest differences may have come earlier than you realized. Burt never found a level grind that he was happy with, so your ability to get that level 32 black belt going into Topher made all the difference.
Yeah, and I was super happy to see the fighters as fast as I did. That was the only thing I felt good about doing those early canoe, ice cave, volcano checks. But as soon as I went back there later and I saw they death touched one of my black mages, I was like, oh no, this is not good.
Yeah, and I think that's what actually kept Burt from taking that grind, is he saw the death touch on his first encounter with them. And so he never really considered that fighter grind to be a possibility. But the fact that you had seen the fighters, you didn't see the death touch, and by the time you got back, I think your black belt was high enough in its MDef that the death touch was less of a problem. It really was that decision to go with the fighter grind that made the difference.
Yeah, I kind of had the same thought. I was thinking, all right, my MDef on my black belt's okay right now, but I didn't trust it enough to take it to 42. I was going to try to do 32 and go to Sentries for the rest of the way, but Sentries were still really chunky with the 32 black belt, so I just settled on 32.
And way to get our hearts racing with those Sentries.
Oh, I know. I was like one failed run from wiping that whole grind out, yep.
A couple of high drama moments. If that white mage had been killed, I believe it was on Tia 2, that could have raised the drama significantly.
There was a couple nail biters in getting the wall out right before the Bane on Chaos. I mean, that Bane could have hit my black belt because I was only 32 MDef, or level 32 black belt MDef, and then I promoted, so it's not like it was spectacularly high. It was pretty okay.
Yeah, 150 range, you'd have been pretty good.
Yeah, and just to let our viewers know, we have reached out to Burt. He wasn't able to come in and do an interview with us, but it does look like we're going to have Cheesinator versus Zenobian here on SpeedGaming 2 in the next 10 minutes or so. And before we head out, Thunder, how are you feeling about being in the finals and the possibility of racing against Cheesinator or Zenobian?
Honestly, I didn't think I was going to get this far. Honestly, I thought my run was going to be over when I was up against Edgeworth last night. So I was just kind of grateful that I'm getting further than I thought I was going to make it through these brackets. And so I'm very much content with whatever outcome will come. But I do want to, obviously I'm going to play to try to win. And Cheesinator is a great methodical kind of thinker. So he really weighs the numbers a lot, and he plays towards the good numbers a little bit. But he has been known to go risky when he feels like he's up against a wall. So, and Zenobian is very much a loose cannon too. He tends to go really risky when he knows he's up against a tough opponent. So, not sure if playing it safe would be the best option tonight, but we'll see.
How about the fact you're playing multiple races today? How often do you play multiple runs in the same day, and what's generally your experience in doing that?
Not too much anymore. I mean, it really doesn't bother me a lot most of the time when I run multiple races in a day. Especially when I started out with the randomizer, I was running like 3, 4, or 5 seeds back to back. I was enjoying it so much when I started playing. So running more than one in a day hasn't ever really messed me up too bad, except for apparently in this race, it really kind of jogged my memory around a little too much for trying to remember some of the checks. But it's typically not a big issue, and I don't do it too often anymore. I really just play when tournaments come around and community races, really.
And then I guess my other big question is, what is your prep like? Do you sit? Do you watch the next one? Do you go take a nap? What does Thunder do in between now and the finals?
I feel like I've kind of played enough practice races simulating all the different runs I could do. Like, I've practiced what a fighter carry would be like, a thief carry, a black belt carry, even mages, all mages. So I'm pretty much know how to play through whatever the draft comps could throw at me. So I'm not probably going to run any seeds. I'll just watch. I definitely want to watch the next race coming up just because I want to watch the race, not necessarily to scout, and then probably just relax, watch some more Twitch in the time between then and the finals.
Yeah, and speaking of that next race coming up, we gotta start wrapping up here to give them some time to do some cropping and get the next team coming in. So let's just do some final thoughts. Thunder, do you have any closing thoughts you want to get out there to the community?
Other than the fact that this game is really fun, and definitely check out the Discord if you haven't yet, and get started on it on yourself. If you like the retro style type of games and you like old school RPGs, this one's a classic. Should definitely give it a shot.
Thunder and Burt, they gave us quite the show, and hope everyone has enjoyed it. There are still 2 more races of this Final Fantasy Randomizer tournament, and it looks like that is going to put a bow on this one. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you, SpeedGaming, for hosting us. Shadowed Flame for tracking. I have been Trenton, joined by Davis, and hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your day.
Have a good one, everyone.